Hi, everyone. Welcome to Epic Chats. My name is Jennifer, and I am the U.S. Head of Development at Epic Foundation. So Epic fights to change the lives of disadvantaged children and youth around the world. And we've used a VC-inspired philanthropy model to vet over 4,000 nonprofits to create our portfolio of 26 in 11 countries. So a little bit of housekeeping today. We have an opportunity to ask our guest speaker, Don, your burning questions. So please add them to the questions window on the sidebar. And there's also a feature to upvote the ones that you'd really love answered. So please take a minute to put your questions in there. And then with that, over to you, Jason.
Hi, everyone. I am Jason, and I am in charge of development here at Epic France. As you may know, the Epic Pledge is a great way as an entrepreneur or an investor to add purpose into your business life and the opportunity as well to join a great community. As a founder, you promise to give to social good a percentage of your success from an exit. As an investor, you promise to give a percentage of your carried interest. The Epic Pledge is not legally binding. It is a simple way to add purpose to your everyday. It is pretty simple, but it can have a huge impact. Today, we welcome one of our wonderful pledgers as a guest, Don Stalter, partner at Global Founders Capital, a multi-billion-dollar venture capital firm that invests from pre-seed right through to exit. Thank you so much, Don, for being here and for being part of our community of engaged investors. So before you dive with Jennifer into Don's vision, allow me to tell you that at Epic, we are all about giving back. For each webinar of this series, the speaker chooses one organization from the 26 high-impactful social orgs we have in the Epic portfolio, helping vulnerable children and youth around the world. So all optional donations from you, the attendees, will go to supporting the featured organization. And this week, Don has chosen the organization Pivotal, which supports the foster youth of Santa Clara County, California, with the goal that foster youth get the support they need to achieve education, employment, and income parity. So you will see a donation link pop up on your screen. You can click on it and it will open a new window and won't take you away from our Epic chat. Feel free to give what you can. I really hope you will enjoy the discussion. And back to you, Jennifer.
Great, thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
So I want to open by going back in time a little bit, Don. You started your career straight out of university working on M&A deals in the US, including the Google YouTube deal. And then you did lots of other deals on the ground in different corners of the world. And so I'd love to have you share a little bit more about your iBanker days before launching City Deal and becoming a founder yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I graduated from the University of Chicago in 2004 and had done a number of different internships in technology in the Bay Area, where I grew up. And, after having studied, economics and international relations, there was nothing I'd rather, have explored than opportunities to do cross-border deals. And Credit Suisse, the big Swiss bank, had an office in San Francisco where, despite it being kind of a, very European sort of Swiss organization, people were in flip-flops and T-shirts in the office. And we interacted with some of the top entrepreneurs, some of the top companies in the Bay Area, the top technology companies in Latin America and in Europe. And we explored opportunities to help entrepreneurs in the Bay Area exit their businesses to those, larger organizations or to prosecute merger deals. And, the experience was definitely one of versatility, because you just have so many different types of entrepreneurs, people with different backgrounds in San Francisco, from people from the Midwest of the United States, investing in building and call it the agricultural category, to people from the Nordics building optical networking equipment. A lot of people move to the Bay Area to work on different opportunities like these, and so I think it was an exciting place to be because we saw sort of the best of people and their capabilities from everywhere. And the other exciting piece was that there was so much job creation off the back of these businesses that were being built and then ultimately sold in many cases. I was really lucky to work on the Google YouTube deal. As you mentioned, it was one of the sort of highlights of my career at Credit Suisse. The head of our group at the time is George Boutros, who runs Catalyst Partners in San Francisco, which is sort of a boutique investment bank, and he'd had relationships, from the very start with Google. So getting the deal done was something that required a number of different phone calls, a fairness opinion, as they call it, to determine sort of the value of the business, which was largely a projection on the value that it would add to Google. And then, a number of meetings before, it was done. And I feel like, to probably a week and a half to really sort of determine the price. And YouTube's managed to create, sort of a massive business inside of Google, which is exciting. And I have a number of friends who sort of came out of that transaction, from Credit Suisse to folks at other venture funds in the Bay Area, even around the world. So it was a really, really exciting process. And I mean, at the beginning, it was totally unexpected that it would become kind of so large. But I think, fortune favors the bold, and Google, was a business that was willing to sort of take that leap. And lo and behold, in every country around the world, almost, YouTube is doing everything from home videos through to full-on feature films. So definitely an experience.
Yeah, amazing. It's funny that you mentioned Google and job creation. Early in my career, I worked on helping Google grow their Midwest headquarters from literally, this is like their Airbnb, but like 2 people in a garage, all the way to a 200-person headquarters. And this was in 2008 during the recession. I hear you on sort of the excitement of tech kind of, fighting through economic challenges, and you could definitely use that now. Amazing. So also kind of staying earlier in your career, you were an early employee at both Groupon and Airbnb, leading their international divisions. What are some international expansion do's and don'ts that you can share with founders watching today who might be looking to take their startups global?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, both Groupon and Airbnb, I feel like, are businesses that have contributed to their local communities. So they're sticky sort of in their own right, and both businesses sort of grew in their own right virally, you could say. The word of mouth, people were excited about, sort of the consumer value add that both businesses provided. Groupon sort of local deals for SMEs, and Airbnb, providing sort of accommodations, but also, exposure to kind of local communities. So I was very fortunate to be involved in, businesses that, were literally sort of, a perfect sort of storm or conflagration of different business models and opportunities. And I was just very, very lucky. But I would say, in terms of dues, in particular, lessons that I learned were around building out metrics-oriented, sort of data-oriented operations. Meaning, if you want to scale a business that's got kind of automatic consumer appeal, you want to be able to build out a way to monitor that and to understand that. You want to create time series data that you can look at and that you can make projections off of sort of at every juncture. And so, with Airbnb, for example, we had 13 different KPIs when we built out a new location, call it San Francisco, an accommodation that was booked most frequently was in a great location, call it the Marina, had 2 bedrooms was sort of the standard in terms of KPIs. In terms of the photography that you have on the Airbnb website, you want interior shots, exterior shots of the kitchen. And the price was always a really important thing, and so on and so forth. And so, literally being able to sort of break down the KPIs around a listing created a lot more success. If you focus on those points rather than simply allowing a user to just upload a listing. So the onboarding process was really, really key as sort of a do. A do for Groupon, I would say, sort of similarly, a lot of it was sort of all about location. We're sort of appealing restaurants in Tokyo, for example. Maybe they're in Shibuya, where there's sort of a massive amount of sort of inbound traffic from a bunch of different locations. What types of restaurants are sort of the most popular? what are the right price points, and so on and so forth. And so really breaking down deals or opportunities to the little lower layers is a really, really important thing to sort of do in building a consumer-facing business, because it might all seem fine and good because something's growing by a weed, you got a tiger by the tail or whatever else. But once you hit 100 million, 200 million, a billion in revenue, the business can go sort of every which way unless you're very, very mindful about your approach to to every element of every deal. So that was a lesson that I learned across both businesses. And then I think don'ts. I mean, I think culture is king. I think you don't want to build a business where people are not able to find empathy within their sort of daily lives. You want people who are able to ask questions, to reason with each other, to come up with solutions. So hiring for people who are constructive and sort of solutions oriented is really, really key. But at the same time, you need people who are super ambitious. So finding that balance is really important. I mean, I remember, people would literally go, either business and set up offices in various locations within a week, but then they'd have to close down those offices and open them up on another side of town because they were hiring so quickly. You've got to be nimble to do that, and being empathetic to deal with sort of the constant change is really, really important. And if you're not that way, then it's can be kind of a nightmare.
Yeah. If I can jump in for
Sure.
a hot second. So with culture and kind of keeping a close eye on I guess local nuances, one thing that has come up in my past conversations about internationalization is hiring managers. So do you hire, the senior managers locally? Do you, sort of export some members of your team from HQ? Like, how did you think about that in, either the context of Groupon or Airbnb?
I mean, so I'd say sort of, when you're building a business and it's hyper growth mode, you want to make hay while the sun shines. So you want to hire as fast as possible. You want to pull as many folks in as possible. You want to get the best people sort of at the same time. Taking a concerted sort of long-term effort to hiring where it takes 3, 6, 12 months or whatever, does not necessarily allow you to sort of keep up with potential competition, to continue to grow the business as fast as you want, et cetera. So what I found is kind of in the early days, as many smart people as you can possibly bring in from every direction possible, whether they're friends of other great employees or friends of founders or friends of investors or whoever else. Really talk to everybody. It's not sort of a head wrecking struggles, kind of a search type of a process that makes a ton of sense in my view in sort of hyper growth and critical junctures in terms of building a business. But at the same time, you need to sort of know which way the wind is blowing. Like if you're trying to build out a product team, you're trying to build out an engineering team, and you've got some critical hires to think through. You've got to focus on finding those folks, and you've got to talk to the right people. You've got to get the right references. That doesn't mean move slowly, but it does mean maybe there are more touch points in understanding sort of that potential candidate or that hire. So I'd say sort of in general, the more again metrics that you can put around hiring, higher quality folks are very likely to have. The greater the retention will be, but don't do it to the detriment of hypergrowth. Got
it. Thank you for that. And so I'm mindful of that we've hit the time for AMA. So again, audience members, please add your questions in. But I do want to slide one more question in before we make that transition, which is obviously at Epic, we looked at what was happening around us at our global community, and we wanted to kind of bring our like-minded investors and founders together, but then also sort of help on a larger level. And so I guess the last question is, looking at the startups that you've worked with, or maybe the startups you've worked with in the past, how have you seen them adapt during the crisis, and how have they help their teams, help their customers through the pandemic?
Mm-hmm. Well, so it's definitely been a challenging time. Almost a perfect storm in terms of the economy, the virus, and everything else that's going on. And so there's been a lot of uncertainty, a lot of confusion, and I think it's been about asking questions of our portfolio. How do you feel? I mean, they're the ones captaining their ships, and we really want to understand their perspectives on how to approach things, kind of first and foremost. We've seen some real serendipity through all of this. There's a business called Wanderjaunt, for example, which we made an investment in because we were inspired by Airbnb. Candidly, they afford people to book properties in places like Phoenix, Arizona, in places like San Diego. We invested in the business with Keith Raboy, who's an early investor in Airbnb. They've got 7 billion data points, real time understanding sort of where the best properties are and
Wow.
what the prices should be and so on and so forth. And that business, initially, there was a lot of concern, just like with Airbnb, around will people book accommodations or will they just stay home because they're concerned around the virus. But a lot of people actually left major cities, as I'm sure you've read, like San Francisco and New York, to go to markets like Phoenix, to escape, to go to San Diego, to spend time in the countryside. And the business has boomed. It's done incredibly well. It's identified a very unique niche. There really is nothing else like it. The founder's incredible. His family's from China, like the founder of DoorDash, who's also from China, and he's an absolute hustler. He's ready to fight till he wins, and he's certainly pushed through with flying colors. So that's been a very, very exciting example of a company in our portfolio that we've stayed very close to through these times.
Great, thank you. And so I'm looking at some of the questions that have flowed in, and let me build off of the question that I just asked you, because I see one question from Debbie. So what do you have for founders running startups that are being hit especially hard in sectors like travel, hospitality, entertainment? The example that you just gave, he's sort of riding the opportunity now in sort of the urban to suburban outflow. But what if they're squarely in the path of COVID? Like, what advice do you give for founders that are stuck in that sticky situation?
I think the truth of this situation is that again, there's a lot of uncertainty. I think that's sort of the flavor of the day. Things move in different directions. Things are great, then suddenly there's an increase in COVID in a particular city, and everything needs to be shut down, and so on and so forth. But I think that some of our founders have adapted to it in very unique ways. You probably know remote work, remote conferences, remote everything has become sort of very common now. And we have a business called Resi in New York. It's rentresi.com, which allows folks to rent long-term listings. And typically, landlords and tenants, wanted to visit properties sort of in person in order to determine if they were going to, make a booking for a year or sort of lease the property for, an extended period of time. Resi's built out a program called Trinity, a tool that affords people to do, these viewings virtually, and it seems to work really, really well. So, the founder's been very, very creative, resourceful, and has developed out an entire new sort of engineering team to focus on this. And what's ended up happening is the business is being able to expand sort of beyond its initial markets, where kind of in-person meetings and the elbow grease around meeting up live is no longer necessary. We've seen really interesting kind of evolution of business models that have expanded the TAMs of the businesses that have led to very rapid growth.
Got it. So Sebastian, who happens to be a fellow Epic Pledger, he has a question for you on growth. So what are a few very specific actions that lead to high growth? For example, what was your favorite campaign for the acquisition plan that delivered the best results? Yeah, no,
absolutely. I mean, I think as investors, as entrepreneurs, we're huge fans of organic traffic and user-generated content. We have an interesting company that's almost a consumer watchdog type of an app called DoNotPay.com. You might want to take a look at it. Like, let's say you've had a flight delay, or you've had an issue where your gym membership has been canceled for no particular reason. You've had some issues with call it your credit card companies or whatever else. They've got basically a robo advisor, or a program that allows you to figure out how to deal with these things and to sort of seek reimbursement. Now, a lot of these kind of topics end up being somewhat controversial, and definitely people love to talk about them and to kind of figure out solutions. And you go on Quora and you can read about how to kind of deal with that flight that was canceled, or you can figure out how to deal with all sorts of different things by just Googling them. But this business has been putting out significant blogs. It's been out there developing content day in, day out, and creating just so much buzz around it's your right as a consumer to not get ripped off, and it goes on sort of helping the consumer understand sort of through its how-to pages, through its anecdotes, through its storylines, how to approach these types of situations. And I think they've had some issues too, where big airlines have come in and have accosted them and said sort of how come you're advising people in this fashion, et cetera. Let them leverage kind of a different legal process. I mean, you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. They've certainly had sort of their twists and turns, but they've driven so much attention through sort of these shocking in some cases, and just fluid discussion and explaining to people how their rights are their rights, that it's done extraordinarily well.
I'm gonna have to go check that out. Does seem like a very interesting acquisition strategy. So Alex Groves has a question on blockchain. What are the implications of blockchain business models for traditional M&A exits? Many of these businesses, like the one I'm trying to build, is a new category of intangible based on tokens and microeconomies within the corporate entity. So this one's getting pretty specific, but I guess, if you could say a few words on your thoughts on blockchain.
Yeah, I mean, I think blockchain is a great way to help people protect their identities in terms of doing a transaction online or through an app. In particular, let's say you're dealing again with an entity that's done you wrong as a consumer. You can leverage the blockchain to be reimbursed without necessarily having to engage with them in person. Blockchain enables an arbitration that's more scotch-free than you would typically experience having to go to sort of a small claims court. And so, I think that application has been quite interesting and quite successful, in terms of tokenization within blockchain. I think, right now, if we're gonna look at the entire kind of crypto category, I think that there's a fair amount of interest in Bitcoin and in different assets like gold and others off the back of the fact that the U.S. currency and currency as a whole have been experiencing kind of significant fluctuations due to COVID and just the world of uncertainty. So I think as an offshoot of sort of blockchain and sort of that category, I think it's exciting to look at alternative currencies. But I'm sure there are a lot more folks on this call right now who are experts. I don't focus on that category as much.
Yeah, I was going to say we could have a whole new webinar series on just blockchain and crypto. But looking at time, I do want to ask you a last question. So you signed the Epic Pledge back in 2017, making you one of our early champions. So wondering why did you sign the Epic Pledge, and how do you, I guess, think about ESG at your firm as well?
I mean, I just think I'm very, very fortunate and have been through a lot of different experiences, and people have been, really wonderful to me during my life. I've been, just very blessed, and I feel like as an investor, I'm afforded the opportunity to help people grow their businesses. I'm being, put in a position where I can ostensibly help, support the creation of jobs. To the extent that I can help organizations that, help foster children, that help, the next generation of entrepreneurs come up, like Pivotal in Santa Clara, for example, I'm thrilled. And there's really nothing I'd rather do, than help support people because I've been supported so much.
Thank you. Well, it's wonderful to have you as part of our Epic Pledge community. And just thanks again for taking the time to join us today and chat with our community. I'll have to hook you and Sebastian up after this so you can have a nice Epic chat. But for now, I guess, to everyone in our audience, thank you so much for joining us. Just as a reminder, please also go sign up for our next webinar next month with Ben Morel, who is the co-founder and managing partner at Brega. And so one last thing, we do have a favor. When the webinar ends, please stick around for an extra 5 seconds. You'll automatically see our little Super Bowl commercial about the Epic Pledge. Check it out and ping us if you'd like to join our community of like-minded founders and investors building amazing businesses for good. So yeah, until then, see you next time. Thank you, Don.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Take care.
It's great having you.